Okay, in this video we're going to talk about layers. And layers is a subject that you can spend a lot of time wrapping your head around, but we're just going to do a basic introduction to it so that you can start using them in your Photoshop editing. And the best way for me to explain layers to you is to compare them to sheets of transparent plastic. So in this image here, imagine that we have 3 sheets of plastic sitting here, and 2 of them have some type on them that says layers. Now if I grab the top layer and I pull it away from our pile, you're going to notice that it is a sheet of transparent gray with white lettering on it, and underneath it there's another sheet of transparent gray with red lettering that you probably didn't notice before. That's because the top layer was laying on top of the bottom layer. Now we can even go one step further, pulling this way out of the way, and I can grab this layer with the red text and I can pull it up out of the way, and you'll notice that there's one more layer down underneath it without any text at all. And that's the basics of what layers does in Photoshop. So layers can be as simple as just having 2 sheets like this, one that lays over the other and has an effect on it or covers up part of it, or it can be as complicated as having 10 layers with all kinds of different adjustments and effects to create a very complex Photoshop image. And to better understand what's happening with these layers, I'm going to go ahead and open up our layers panel here, which I have minimized at the moment. And again, if your workspace doesn't look like mine, then you want to go up to here and make sure you're clicked on Essentials. And if you are clicked on Essentials, then go ahead and click Reset Essentials, and that's going to pop open our Essentials workspace. And then we can go ahead and minimize some of these that we're not going to use, like the Color panel and the Learn panel. And that's just going to leave our Layers panel open, and now we can start to understand what's going on in here. So if you look over here, actually let me move these again so you can see what's going on. If you look over here, we have 4 layers here, and you can see each one is labeled. So we have a white text layer, which is this one. We have a red text layer, which is that one. We have a blank layer, which is just this blank sheet. And then we have a black background, which is the background. So this image is made up of 4 layers. And you can also see that they're stacked on top of each other. So the white text layer is above the red text layer, and therefore when I slide this down onto that, it lands on top. So the white obscures the red. But these can be rearranged however you want, depending on what you want to show up on top. So if I want our red text to show up, I can actually grab that by left clicking on it. See, I have a hold of it now, and I'm going to move it up above the white text layer, and you see the little blue bar shows me where it's going to nest. And then I release, and now the red text layer is on the top, and so now it's covering up the white text. And if I move this, you'll see now it's on top. And even if I come down below it, it's still going to cover it up. And the hierarchy is one of the most important aspects of using layers because of the fact that you can cover things over, hide things, and change things using layers. Another really cool aspect of layers is that you can hide them. Now you'll see these little eyeballs over here. This is the show or hide icon, and if I want to hide the red text layer, the entire layer, here let me move it up here again so it's easier to visualize, then I just click on this little eyeball and it disappears. If I click it again, it'll come back, and I'll click it again to make it disappear, and same thing with the white text layer. If I want to hide this white text layer, I just click the eyeball and I hide it, and so on and so forth. I can hide all the layers if I want, and in fact I could even hide my background layer if I want by clicking here and that leaves me with no layers at all. And the reason you'll see these gray and white checkerboards is that is showing us that this is transparent. So there's just really nothing on the canvas at this point. So for instance, if I was to bring back the red text layer, you'll notice that the text comes back. There is still that sheet there, but it's very light gray, so you can't really see it on a transparent background. But if I plop in my black background, now you can see that sheet again. Okay, so all of these layers you can turn on and off, you can move them independently of each other. And speaking of moving them, let me show you one setting that you can do to help you to select the right thing. If you go up here to the options bar, and you need to make sure you're on the move tool. If you're on like the rectangular marquee, then it's not going to show the right options. So you click on the move tool, and there's this little thing that says auto select, and right now I have that checked. What that means is whatever I hover over, it's going to try and select the thing that I'm hovering over. So if I hover over this one, I can grab it. If I hover over this one, I'll grab it. And you'll notice the selection changes when I click on it. So if I click on the blank layer down here, click, it's now selected. If I click on the background, it's now selected. Okay. Now that's one of the easier ways to do selections, but you can also turn off auto selection, or it sometimes may be off by default. And if you're going and trying to click on things, for instance, now I'm trying to click on the red layer, and well, let's first select the blank layer, okay? So it makes more sense. Now if I go and try and click on the red layer, notice it's still selected on the blank layer. Because it's not on auto select, it's just going to select whatever is selected over here in your layers panel. So if I try and grab this red one and move it, see, it's still connected to the blank layer. So the moral of the story is if you have auto select turned off, then you're going to need to manually select the layer that you want to move over here. Or I can do the white layer. But if I have the white layer selected and I try to grab the background, it's still going to grab that white layer. Because remember, this is like a sheet of plastic, clear plastic, that goes over the entire canvas. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of layers. Now let's just do one more quick thing. I just want to click on a regular image so you can see what the layers are going to look like on just a regular image that you might open. So this is just a JPEG, picture of a road. And if you go and look in the layers panel over here, you notice that there's just one layer, and it has a little icon showing our image, and it's just called background, and it will always call any just single image background by default. And then you'll notice too that it's locked over here. And when it's locked, there are certain things that you can't do to it. So for instance, I cannot click on this icon to make it hide because it's locked. And generally speaking, you want to leave your background layer locked and add new layers by going down here and clicking here, and then doing your edits on the new layers. And that way you preserve your background. It's called non-destructive editing. But if you wanted to do some edits or hide this background layer for some reason, which generally I don't recommend, you can unlock it just by clicking there, and then it's going to rename it to layer 0, and it's going to give you more access to it. You can hide it if you wanted to, and so forth. Okay, and if I Control Alt Z, I'm just going to go back to where it was at the beginning. Again, this is what it's going to look like when you open an image. Okay, so in this video we've learned all about layers. And in the beginning of the video we learned how to select different layers to move them, how you can adjust the auto select to help you grab the layer that you want. We talked about the hierarchy of these levels and how you can overlap these, but if you move these around over here and put the white layer on top of the red layer, then it will cover it up. And we talked about hiding and showing layers. And there's a lot more to learn about layers, but that'll give you a good basic understanding.